Thank you so much to my Patreon supporters. It's a lot of people's favorite sound. The banging on the front door, letting you know that pizza has arrived. There's something about hot delivered pizza that really ties a bow on any evening, especially when it accompanies a movie and a blanket. I jogged over to the door and grabbed the cash off the counter that I had already laid out. I opened the door and couldn't help but be taken aback. The disheveled, skinny pizza delivery man was not very welcoming, as they normally would be. His unkempt hair and obviously dirty clothes gave an immediate feeling of uneasiness. The acne and sores dotting his pale face and arms resembled the pizza that I was previously so hungry for. I caught myself wearing a distasteful scowl as I stared at the man's pale and oozing face. "Oh," I said after a few awkward and silent moments. "Here." I held out my hand with the 2 bills in it. The delivery man didn't immediately react to my offering of the money. He didn't do anything but continue to stare. His gaze was almost one that was looking through me. He seemed like he didn't notice me or my outstretched hand. I attempted to wave my hand a bit higher to pass in front of his lifeless eyes. He still had no reaction. My uneasiness quickly turned to dread. He had not moved the entire time. He just kept standing there blankly. He didn't even look like he was breathing. Finally, his eyes darted toward my hand. I couldn't tell whether he was looking at the cash or the wedding ring on my hand. I was happy that the ring signified to the man I had a husband, but his appearance made it easy for me to peg him as an addict of some kind. The foul stench emanating from his body added to my worry. I waved my hand again and cleared my throat. I was about to slip back into my house without any exchange when he finally began to open the warming bag. I felt slightly less uncomfortable for that moment. As he reached in the bag, he asked in a very quiet voice, "Are you all alone out here?" I tried my best not to seem frightened by his demeanor or his question. I quickly answered, "Oh gosh, no. I live with my husband." The man had the pizza halfway out of the warming bag when he stopped and immediately followed my response with another question. "Is he here now?" It was at this point my fear mixed in with a slight dose of panic. My thoughts began to race at what might happen next. Why was I in this situation? Am I really about to be raped? Maybe killed? Yes, of course he's here," I said. I felt my face began to flush. I was a terrible liar under normal circumstances, and I know what I just said sounded extremely unconvincing. The dim porch light revealed a slight smirk on the man's face. The odd smile told me that he didn't believe me, and that he was fully aware of how terrified I was. I opened my hand to show that I was trying to give him the money. "Please," I said. I must have sounded so pathetic when I said that. It was almost as if I was begging for him not to hurt me. He gave a small laugh through his nose and pulled the pizza the rest of the way out from the bag. I grabbed the box, dropped the money to the ground, and without waiting for it to grab him, I slid the box in the house and closed the door, locking it immediately. My heart was pounding and I was breathing heavily. I was really glad to have the door closed. I stood there at the door, listening for him to walk away. After a minute, it was obvious that he hadn't even taken a single step. He was standing in the exact same spot. We were both standing a mere 2 feet from each other, separated by a door. I knew that he could tell that I also hadn't moved. After what seemed like an eternity, I heard him walk from the front door and down the 2 wooden steps onto the walkway. I sighed in relief. My heart was still pounding, but I had calmed down immensely. I walked over to the living room and set the pizza on the coffee table. I sat back on the couch and was not hungry anymore. I certainly was not in a mood to watch a scary movie. I didn't even have a moment to think about what I was going to do when I heard footsteps walking across the deck. Anybody walking across the deck would be able to see into the house directly where I was sitting. My anxiety levels began to climb again. 3 loud knocks startled me so much that I had let out a small scream. I clutched my chest and yelled, "What? What do you want?" The aggressive manner of the knocking scared me. The person outside the door was well aware that I was sitting in the same room. He didn't even need to knock that loud. I yelled again in a trembling voice, "What? What do you want?" "You forgot your drink. Your single drink." He spoke as if his mouth was pressed to the crack of the door. "Honey," I yelled in an awful attempt to scare him off, "can you get the door, babe?" Again, I was immediately reminded about how bad of a liar I was. The acting job would have not convinced anybody. "Just leave it at the doorstep," I yelled in desperation. My voice cracked as if I had said that and begun to cry. "Please just go," I cried out. I was trying to hold my breath and listen to what he was doing. He finally walked off the deck again. I sat there trying to be as quiet as possible, hoping I would hear him drive away. I hated that he could see me. He could see exactly where I was sitting and that I was crying. I was trembling and afraid to move. All I could do was wait. So I waited. After almost 5 agonizing minutes, I finally heard his car start. I gasped in relief. I still didn't want to get up and look out the window. I didn't want that man looking at me anymore. I just wanted him gone. I could hear the car still in the driveway. The car was just sitting idle. The man was not leaving. He was just sitting there. The quick sense of relief that felt had vanished. Again, I was right back in the grip of fear. I wanted to call the police. There were 2 phones in the house. The closest one was in the kitchen just to my right. He would be able to see me if I went in there. He would be able to watch my every move. The other phone was upstairs in our bedroom. I spent the next 6 minutes mustering up any sort of courage to get off the couch and run up to my bedroom. It was on the opposite side of the house, and I feared not being able to hear the man or his whereabouts. It was when he started revving the engine of his car that I sprung from the couch and ran up the stairs. I ran down the hall into my bedroom, slammed and locked my door, picked up the phone, and dialed 911. 911, what is your emergency? Yes, I need your help. There's a man here. He won't leave. Are you hurt, ma'am? Is this man hurting you? No, he won't leave. He's just sitting in my driveway in his vehicle. Is this your husband or boyfriend? No, he's a pizza delivery man, but there's something wrong with him. Pizza delivery man? What's wrong with him? Is he hurt? Do you need an ambulance? No, listen to me. This guy, He's strange. There's something wrong with him. He won't leave me alone.
Has this man threatened you?
No, he's just creepy. He's asking me strange questions and he won't leave. I'd like you to send an officer, please.
Okay, ma'am. We're dispatching an officer to your location. I'm showing 2356 Walker Road.
Yes, that's it. Please hurry.
The operator started to say something, but my attention was stolen when I heard something. It sounded as if there was someone in my house. I froze and was too scared to even speak into the receiver of the phone. I placed my thumb over the phone's speaker so I could listen more intently. I held my breath and tried to pinpoint any disturbance in the silence. After a long few minutes of not hearing anything, I checked the phone to find out the 911 operator had hung up. I slowly and quietly hung up the phone and walked towards the edge of my room to listen through the door. Nothing. Still nothing. I opened the door and listened down the hallway. Still nothing. I walked across the hall into the adjacent room. I looked out the window into the driveway and was relieved to see the headlights were gone. I let out another long breath of relief. Although a lot of my anxiety had been slightly lifted, I was still on edge and wary of the whole situation. I was glad to know the police officer was on the way. I walked back down the stairs into the living room. The smell of pizza had overtaken the room and reminded me of my original plan. Normally it would have been a pleasant smell, but it only reminded me of that disgusting man and his bloody, splotchy skin. I sat back down on the couch and decided to wait for the police officer to arrive. Not a few seconds had passed when I heard the door handle trying to turn. I hadn't heard anybody walking down the deck and certainly didn't hear any cars pull into the driveway. I jumped up with my heart pounding again. I slowly walked over to the wall and flicked off the lights. Now that the interior lights were off, I could see out into the front. To my horror, I could see that man's car was still parked in the driveway. I had mistook his headlights being off the car for not being there. 3 bone-shaking knocks sounded that made me yell, "Who is it? What do you want?" 3 more aggressive knocks echoed through the house. My heart felt like it was going to leap out of my chest. The man began to knock on the door in a steady beat, seeming to get louder and louder with each hit. When it sounded like the door was about to come off the hinges, I screamed at the top of my lungs, "Go away!" The man stopped beating on the door and it was silent. All I could hear was my heavy breathing. I could feel my heart beating throughout my entire body. "Open the door," the man said. The menacing tone that he used brought me back to tears. "Please, go away. The police are on their way," I cried out in the darkness. "The police?" He paused for a long while. "It's probably going to take them a long time to get out here, don't you think?" "I think it's just going to be you and me." "They said there was an officer close by. He will be here any second." I had begun to sound almost hysterical. I knew the man on the other side of the door could hear the fear in my voice. "Just open the door." "No, go away." The tears poured down my face as I begged the man to leave. "Okay, fine," he said. "I'll leave you alone for now. Enjoy your pizza, Christine." Hearing the deranged man use my name made my stomach turn. I heard the man slowly walk from the deck. With the lights being off, I could see the man's silhouette walk by the window. I
watched the man move down the hallway and slowly get into his car. I heard his car start and I walked into the kitchen to make sure he was leaving. I watched the car's headlights back down the driveway and then to the main road. The car sat in the road for a whole minute. I watched and prayed for him to leave. Eventually, the car started to move and he drove down the road and out of my sight. Again, I let out a large sigh of relief. I couldn't believe how afraid I had just been. The entire ordeal had seemed like a terrible dream. Knowing that the officer was on the way was very comforting to me. I don't think I would have felt comfortable at all if it wasn't the case. Seeing a friendly face, a protector, a person of authority would do me good. I sat there in the darkness for a long time. It seemed like it was taking the officer forever to arrive. I had a lot of time to think. The fear that I'd been experiencing over the last 20 minutes began to morph into anger. I was angry at that creep. I was so completely unsettled now, and he had ruined my evening. Was I now fearful of being in my own house? Why did he have to say something like that? I decided to call the pizza place and complain about him. I grabbed the phone off the kitchen wall and called the number. "Can I speak to a manager, please?" I asked. After a few seconds, the manager picked up the phone and began. "Hi, my name is Christine Brabson. I had ordered delivery from you about an hour ago." The manager cut me off and asks, "Oh, do you live down Walker, ma'am?" "Yes, Walker Road." "Ma'am, I am terribly sorry. I just received a call from another customer in your area. They have not received their pizza yet either. Something must have happened to our driver. We'd be happy to send out another one as soon as possible." "No, I did receive my pizza. He arrived 20 minutes ago, and he threatened me." That's strange. Could you tell me what happened?" "He was a creep. He was awful, and he was trying to scare me. Who do you have working for you? Who is this creep?" "He? I'm confused." "Yes, the delivery man you said here." "Ma'am, the driver who went to you was Tiffany, short, blonde, and female." It felt like a dagger had pierced me right in the heart. The adrenaline that pumped through my veins almost blinded me. The manager was still speaking on the other end of the phone, but I couldn't hear a single word. The amount of thoughts going through my head had begun to make me dizzy. I felt like fainting. I felt like throwing up. I heard a car pull into the driveway. For a moment, I feared that it was that driver again. But as the car pulled closer, I could see it was a police car. I cut the manager off on the other end of the phone. I don't know what's going on, but the police are here now." I hung up the phone and went out the front door to meet the cop in the driveway. I ran to the car just as the officer was getting out. "Oh, thank God you're here. I just called the pizza place and there's something wrong." The officer closed his door and walked around to meet me at the end of his cruiser. I was so relieved that I ran into his arms and began to cry. "Oh my God, thank you, the pizza guy." As I hugged my savior, I noticed the same foul stench that I smelled earlier. His ill-fitting uniform was too large for his skinny body. I backed off his chest and noticed the sores covering his arms, which had begun to tighten around me.